again.
It's good to see you're still among the living. It looks like we're not gonna find your brother here after all.
I wasn't there for the original Resident Evil 2. I was too busy getting born. I wasn't there for the Resident Evil 3 as well, or 4, or even 5. And 6 is nothing but a half-lucid fever dream that I still to this day pretend did never happen. I was there, however, for Resident Evil 2 Remake, that I indeed managed to play, perhaps not on release day, but at least in the same year it actually came out. It was the first try of re-engine for a third-person game, after some funky experimentations of the first-person camera in Resident Evil 7. And in my mind, this version of Re 2 was mind-blowing. Just seeing that hamburger for the very first time is truly a once-in-a-lifetime spiritual experience. I finished it all, 2 times 2 just as it's intended. And still to this day I remember most of this game just because it's designed that good. But perhaps I could go for another run, especially because 2019 was 6 years ago. And this realization gives me existential crisis. It is interesting how little Resident Evil 2 Remake aged, graphically especially. The combination of enclosed, tightly packed locations that at times lighted so little that it feels like navigating a true pitch dark create a unique visual style that is almost immune to aging. It's almost like with the original Silent Hill 2. If you can't see further than 2 feet in front of you, you can't really complain about puddles being not refractive enough, because you see no puddles. Of course you can put your face to some textures and see how text or images on it can be blurry and borderline impossible to read, but we are in the age of frame gen and mandatory DLSS, so any new game we play is already a blue fiesta anyhow. The only difference is that this game runs at a solid 60, while Monster Hunter Wilds makes my PC emit noises which I haven't even considered possible before. Re-engine is great. Great when used in enclosed small spaces, that is. The near photorealistic graphic fidelity it provides allows for immersion that is, if done right, is almost impossible to beat. When you try to scope that out to a greater open world, however, everything just breaks apart. The latest Monster Hunter and Dragon's Dogma 2 are great examples of that. It is almost like this entire engine was made specifically for the needs of Resident Evil franchise, that is famous for its small, detailed, atmospheric sets, where scope was never the point. Crazy theory, I know. In its essence, RE2 is just a bunch of corridors you run through, while a comically rauch man in fedora chases after you. But running through those corridors is really great. It feels really great. The ambience, very limited light, attention to even the smallest of details, a sense of constant looming danger. It all just creates such a great vibe when playing this game. It's one of those games I actually prefer playing later in the night with my lights off, simply to drench myself in that creepy, spooky survival horror, tingling weary sensation of being locked inside with flesh-eating walking human corpses. And speaking of being locked inside, this game came out before COVID. Remember COVID? Fun times of being forced to stay inside, while the dread of uncertainty about when or even if all of this would ever end. COVID broke minds for a lot of people, myself included. I think. I still suspect that the world indeed has ended back then, and all of this is just us serving our punishment in purgatory. But back to RE2. Because of all of the many things that happened since its release, this game sits in that twilight zone for me. On one hand, it came out quite a while ago, yeah, that makes sense. But also 6 years? No, that's just nonsense. It's been like, what, 1 year? 2 years at best, right? No. The truth is that it's not only been half of a decade, but also the person who enjoyed Prey and finished this entire game 6 years ago does not exist anymore. As no matter how much we try to ignore, cope, or even fight it, none of us can ever escape change. Resident Evil as a franchise has been here for a while. This year it will actually get its 30-year anniversary, and during those 30 years the world in general became quite different to what it used to be. Back in the 90s, the whole idea of sending a text message via a mobile phone was a mind-blowing concept, and now in our current age we deepfake celebrities to see their toes. Such a revolutionary new world we live in. It's been a bit since the first Resident Evil came out, and today's gaming landscape is totally different than it was in '96. It's not a niche hobby for a bunch of nerds anymore, but a multi-billion entertainment machine where even projects done by veterans of the industry with corporate fundings fail and fade into obscurity simply because of how competitive this field has become. To survive all of that, Resident Evil had to adapt, and adapt it did. From the classical early 2000s fixed camera with tank controls, to revolutionizing the entire genre with over-the-shoulder view of RE4, to the Call of Duty era of big explosions, muscly guys, and dark brown filters of Resident Evil 6, to even Umbrella Corps, which unfortunately was a real game and not a figment of my feverish mind, no matter how much I wish otherwise. Resident Evil is no stranger to change. The latest era is pioneered by two general directions. Remakes that adapt older main entries for a modern audience with the help of a shiny pretty new engine, and new games that experiment with a first-person camera. Resident Evil 2, the remake, was the first of the remakes, and it was definitely a resounding success. Partly because it captured the spirit of the original game, and partly because it completely changed almost every single aspect of it. Adapting an old game for a modern world is hard. Just brushing on the graphics and putting a nice RTX puddle in the corner would not quite be enough. So the entire game had to be reimagined, redesigned and rebuilt from scratch to be something completely different, but hopefully capturing the spirit of what came before. And that's what's important here. Things need to change, because if they are not, the world will simply leave them behind. This is true for Resident Evil, this is true for the entire gaming industry, and this is true for me. Six years. 6 years is not that long. At least it doesn't feel like that anymore. I remember so much of this game. I also remember who I was while playing it back in 2019. Where I was, what I was doing at the time, the people I hung up with, even my fears and ambitions. And most of that is gone now. While running through the spooky dark corridors of RCPD, my mind begins to wander to what used to be. Just like this game in itself will always exist in the shadow of its 1998 ancestor, I don't think I'll ever be able to play it without thinking how different my life and even I as a person was when I saw that sick opening movie for the very first time. Aging is weird. It's one thing to see a game from your childhood becoming a retro classic, but it's totally different to realize that you also might be turning retro soon enough. Of course for me it's not true, because I'm still coping and I'm still in denial, but even I can understand that the same person who finished RE2 in 2019 and the person who's making this very video right now, they are not the same people. Not anymore. Which is not only normal, but expected. We grow up, we change. Staying the same means stagnation, means a lack of progress. The world must change. We must change. Even a silly game about shooting not so much alive people must change. But with this constant, ever-present change, it may be so easy to get lost within it, to fail to understand what have you become. There is this very popular video about RE4 remake. Its premise is that the remake is quote-unquote soulless. That it lost its magic that made it special in the first place, and the originality is now gone. I disagree wholeheartedly with that video, but it poses an interesting question. If we move forward, we evolve, we become something hopefully better, then can we, along the way, lose that spark of ourselves that makes us, well, us? Can our metaphorical soul be replaced by whatever the world around us wants us to be? Could it be that the expectations of our culture, of our families, even the ones of our gender, could mold us into something we would never want for ourselves? Because change is necessary. Change is an essence of our existence, but we don't always have a say at how exactly will we change. I look in the mirror, and honestly I have no idea what looks back at me. It does resemble someone I used to know, maybe someone from 5 years ago, maybe even longer. But it's not the same someone. Like a sculpture that has been reshaped and remodeled so many times that only a vague trace of the original remains. Some parts of it are now missing, some have been replaced, and some empty spots are still waiting to be filled by something. But by what? I have no clue. Resident Evil 2 is a silly fun game that I like very much, only I wish it didn't make me think about how fast time flies, and how all of us are hopeless under the ruthless and unwavering currents of the change it brings.
I hear